Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Topic of today's presentation is reviewing the literature. Now, what does a literature review means? It is one of the essential preliminary work or task which you undertake a research study during a research study. That is to go through the existing literature in order to acquaint yourself with the available body of knowledge in your area of interest. You should be knowing what is already been published in your field of study, and what are the different what is the propositions by different authors, by different scientists, what are their theories, what is the gap between the knowledge, and how you can relate your work to their work, to the previously established work. What is the different methodologies, different most appropriate methods to follow for a research work. Everything that is going to be later on is going to be used for your research work depends upon the base that is provided by the literature review. It is an integral part of the research process and makes a valuable contribution to almost every operational steps. In the initial stages of the research, it helps you to establish theoretical roots or background of your knowledge or your study. It can clarify, literature review clarifies your ideas, and it helps to develop your research methodology. Later on in the process, especially during the write-up process, the literature review it helps to enhance and consolidate your own knowledge base, and helps you to integrate your findings, your own research findings into the existing knowledge, into the existing body of knowledge. During the write-up stage, it helps you to integrate your finding with the existing knowledge, that is to either support or contradict earlier research. That what it helps. And the higher the academic level of your research, the most important a thorough integration of your findings with the existing literature becomes. That very much important thing, that you are expected to have a better command on your topic, what is being published around by different other scientists, and what are the latest information about your topic. You should, the more academic level you have, the more it is important that you should be knowing a lot about your field or your study area. In relation to your own study, the literature review can help in four different ways. Number one, it brings clarity and focus to your research problem. It improves your research methodology. It broadens your knowledge base in your research area, and it helps to contextualize or place your findings into the existing knowledge or body of knowledge. The very first objective of literature review is that it brings clarity and focus to a research problem. Whenever you are reviewing the literature, you learn what aspects of your subjects have been examined by others, that has been previously worked by others, what they have found out about these aspects, what are their findings, what gaps they have identified, and what suggestions they have made for other research. All these will help you gain a greater insight into your own research questions and provide you with clarity and focus which are central to a relevant and balanced study. In addition, it will help you to focus your study on areas where there are gaps in the existing body of knowledge, thereby enhancing its relevance. Going through the literature review also helps you with the methodologies. That's a very important thing, that what others that have been used, the methodology, the protocols that have been used by the previous scientists to find answers to the research questions similar to the one you are investigating. Always whenever you are doing a literature review, you try to focus on your relevancy of the previous work with your work, and then you look out that okay, let's say you're working on a project, on a research work of related to tuberculosis, then you are going to see how tuberculosis, let's say some sort of diagnostic work, gene expert you might be using for tuberculosis. So what you will be looking for is how the previous scientists, they have used the same kind of, let's say, gene expert technique for diagnosis of tuberculosis, and how much that is appropriate for them, what sort of samples is better for the identification of tuberculosis using the gene expert method, and what were their flaws, are there any restrictions in their knowledge. So related to your own study, you are going to go through the works that has been published by some other scientists. Previous work is going to be studied. A literature review tells you if the procedure and methods have worked well for them and what problems they have faced with them. By becoming aware of any problems and pitfalls, you will be better positioned to select a methodology that is capable of providing valid answers to your research questions. When you compare different studies, different technologies, different techniques, methodologies, then you are in a better position to decide for yourself that okay, this method is good for me, this method is going to work for me, and this will increase your confidence in the methodology you plan to use and will equip you to defend its use. Literature review broadens your knowledge base in your research area. That's another important function of the literature review, that is to ensure that you read widely around your proposed study area. You must know what other researchers have found in regard to similar or same questions. What are the theories they have put forward? What are the gaps they have identified, and which exist in the relevant body of knowledge? And especially when you undertake a research project for a higher degree, for example, for a PhD or master's level research, you are expected to be an expert in your area of research. A thorough literature review helps you to fulfill this expectation. And literature review, it also helps you to understand how the findings of your study fit into the existing body of knowledge. Literature review enables you to contextualize your finding. Opening answer to your research question is comparatively easy. The difficult part is to examine how your findings fit into the existing body of knowledge. How to answer to your research questions they are compared with what others have found. What contributions have you been able to make to the existing body of knowledge? How are your findings different from the others? What can be the reasons behind that? Why is your results they are different from the other people, and what can be the reason? Undertaking a literature review will enable you to compare your finding with those of the others and answer these above mentioned questions. It is important to place your finding in the context of what is already known in your field of study or inquiry. How are we going to conduct the review of literature? How are we going to review the literature? There are 4 steps involved. Number 1 is searching for the existing literature. Number 2, reviewing the selected literature, developing a theoretical framework, and then developing a conceptual framework. The very first step is searching for the existing literature. To search effectively for the literature in your field, first gain some idea of the broad subject area and of the problems you wish to investigate in order to set parameters for your study or research. And then compile or prepare a bibliography for this broad area. For example, you might be investigating an aspect of a study or disease. Let's say if you are in microbiological sciences, you plan to study, let's say, let's say Neisseria meningitidis or Streptococcus pneumoniae, and you want to investigate the role of PSP protein, surface protein of Streptococcus pneumoniae again in immunity and different immune reactions. Let's say. So first you are going to broadly look at the aspects that morbidity, mortality by this bacteria, Streptococcus pneumoniae, etiology, different types, then how it causes the disease, what are the signs and symptoms, progression of the disease, what are different organs that are affected, how the disease is managed prophylactically or vaccination or treatment plan is there, what are the different risk factors. You are going to broadly look at all these aspects, and then you are going to narrow your research towards your topic, that is surface proteins of the Streptococcus pneumoniae. And then during this process, you are going to compile a bibliography as well. There are 3 main sources that can be used to prepare a bibliography, that is books, journals, and the internet. Now, how you are going to search the existing literature by using books? Books are central part of any bibliography, and one of the main advantages of is that the material published in the books is usually important and is of good quality. and the findings are integrated with the other research to form a coherent body of knowledge. However, one of the main disadvantage is that in the bookish material is completely not up to date. And the best way for search for a book is to look at your library catalogs and then use the subject catalog or keywords option to search for books in your area of interest. For example, you can go for general microbiology, then bacteriology, then Streptococcus pneumoniae, and then surface proteins of the Streptococcus pneumoniae. This will be your pattern for searching the narrowing down the subject area. Like the narrow the subject area search by selecting the appropriate keyword, look through these titles carefully, identify the books you think are likely to be of interest to you. If you think that the title seems appropriate to your topic, print them out and or note them down on a piece of paper. Be aware that sometimes the title does not provide enough information to help you decide if a book is going to be of use to you. So you may have to examine its content too. It's not, it's not necessary that you decide, you look at the title of a book and you will be getting the required information from that. It's not necessary. So it is better to examine the contents. Now, searching for the existing literature by using journals, that is research journals. They provide you with the good thing about these journals, provide you with the most up-to-date information, even though there is always a gap between the publication and the research project completion. And you should select as many journals as you possibly can, through though the number of journals available largely it depends upon the field of study. Some field of studies they've got quite a lot of journals or the publications, whereas some other fields you find a very small number of publications or journals. As with the books, prepare a list of the journals you want to examine for identifying the literature relevant to your study. You can locate the hard copy of the journal or the soft copies that are appropriate to your study or research. Look at the citations or abstract indices to identify. Read the abstracts of such articles and search electronic databases. Reviewing the selected literature. After identifying books and articles as useful, the next step is start reading them critically to pull together themes and issues that are of relevance to your study. You have decided that, okay, these are the different book chapters that might be related to your research work. You have identified some research journals. You have identified the portion that you are going to use, whether it's a methodology portion, whether it's a discussion portion, or the introduction segment that you might be using for your final research report, or you might be using for your research work. You have identified it. Now you're going to put together even a rough version at first. Different chapters will be prepared out of that, books or articles or internet sources or reports, and then you pull out some themes, issues that are relevant to you, and you keep a bibliography track of that as well. And that is called a theoretical framework of the work. The information obtained from different books and journals now needs to be sorted out under the main themes and theories, highlighting agreement, disagreements among the authors, and identifying the unanswered questions or gaps. Literature pertinent to your study may deal with two types of information: universal, more specific, local trends or specific programs. Like I have said earlier, disease, Streptococcus pneumoniae, generally bacterial, it can cause bacterial meningitis or pneumonia at first, and then bacterial meningitis. And then the specific title, let's say PSP, surface protein of Streptococcus pneumoniae. Then the next step is to develop a conceptual framework. The conceptual framework is the basis of your research problem. It stems from the theoretical framework and usually focuses on the section or sections which become the basis of your study. Whereas the theoretical framework consists of theories or issues in your studies, in which your study is embedded. The conceptual framework describes the aspect you selected from the theoretical framework to become the basis of your inquiry. Hence, the conceptual framework, it grows out of the theoretical framework. Theoretical framework provide basis for the conceptual framework, and it relates to the specific research problem. Based upon your literature review, based upon the findings, based upon all the data that you have collected, you prepare a theoretical framework, and then you prepare a conceptual framework, overall a body of knowledge for your literature review. Now, writing about the literature reviewed. You should identify or describe various theories relevant to your field, specify the gaps in the existing knowledge in the area. You should also write down the recent advances in the area of study, the current trends, and so on. You should integrate the results from your study with the specific and relevant findings from the existing literature by comparing the two for confirmation or contradiction. List the main themes, convert into subheading. Some people write up the entire literature review in one section that is called as review of literature, summary of literature, or the literature review without subheading. That is an acceptable way. Whereas some other might suggest you to write your literature review under subheadings based upon the main themes, which should be precise, descriptive, and follow a logical project progression. That depends on you. At times, the institutional, the guidelines, they are also followed. Whether your institute, it requires you to write down an entire literature review in one section without going into the details of the subheading. Whereas some other institute, they want you to write the subheadings as well in the literature review. That depends on institutional requirements. The second writing about the literature review, another more, second important broad function of the literature review is contextualizing the findings of your studies, which requires you to compare very systematically your findings with those made by others and quote from these studies to show how your findings contradict, confirm, or add to them. Like you, for a study, we will continue with the example. Like you say that a specific, let's say, complement proteins, people with a specific deficiency of a complement protein, they are more susceptible to Streptococcus pneumoniae. For example, this is what you have. And if previously suggested work, like say for some ethnic background, people with Asian ethnic background, they are more susceptible to Streptococcus. That's an assumption, but you can quote it. Let's say, for example, that people with Asian background are more susceptible to Streptococcus pneumoniae. Now, if there is some other study which has been published and it shows the similar finding, you are going to confirm them or add to the existing body of knowledge. Or previously, some other studies they have shown, no, it shows that no, that European people, they are more susceptible to Neisseria meningitidis infection. And now your study is contradicting their findings. So you need to correlate your work. You need to find out supportive documents, supportive previously established studies, or some other reports or the findings of other studies to support your verdict. And if you place your places your findings in the context of what others have found out, providing complete reference in an acceptable format. Thank you so much for listening to this